Joining us now is Chidu Narayanan, the head of macro strategy APAC at Wells Fargo Securities. Chidu, thanks so much for joining us. I've got to ask you, in terms of what we're seeing on the US dollar, this just abject resiliency, you've got the long end of the curve continuing to track a little bit high. Is there anything in your mind that can put a stop to this relentless charge that the US dollar has been on the plate?
Good morning. Thanks, Will. That's a good summary of, I guess, the year so far. We think that this is a market that's looking for catalysts, not levels, which means that until you get that catalyst, you're going to have the current themes that are driving markets continue to go on. And we expect the catalyst near term. We expect the dollar to remain strong probably over the next 3 to 6 months. You have the US growth outperformance, you have the divergent rate differentials which are already in favor of the dollars and moving even further so as you have other G10 central banks potentially starting to cut over the next couple of months. We think the Fed and markets as well, we both think that the Fed possibly goes for a rate cut in September, which is some distance away. And in the interim, you will have this G10 policy divergence, which will be even more supportive of the dollar. So we think dollar continues to remain strong next 3 to 6 months. And how that plays for Asia is higher dollar Asia.
Does that mean that people should be, allocating short in terms of EM currencies? Because, as this builds, as these yield differentials continue to widen, as this strength continues to play through, they're getting beaten down.
That's right. So just repeating the catalyst bit, until you get a catalyst, it's going to be the same themes. And the themes have been carry and long dollars. In Asia, you don't have an EM carry theme, which means that you're going to be long dollars against all of the Asian FX. So we like long dollar CNH higher, long dollar yen higher. And as a result of both a weak CNH and a weak yen, you will have a lot of the Asian FX be weaker as well. So Korean won weaker, Thai baht weaker, and so on. But in the rest of the EM space, we like long carry, which the other EMs lend themselves to. So INR is an example. We like long INR, we like long LATAM as well in pockets. So pick and choose. Maybe a better way to express that would be not against the dollar, given the dollar strength. So use a low yielder to express high carry effects, but that's the theme we think continues for the next 3 months.
Because you mentioned the yuan, I've got to ask you, there's this mounting expectation, or I suppose speculation, not expectation, speculation, that all of this commodity buying that we have been seeing on the China front is indicative potentially of a devaluation event on the yuan, considering what we're seeing in the yen, considering what we're seeing in terms of the won as well. Do you think that that's likely at all, that, considering everything that they've said, suggested, all the fixings they've been doing, that they'd let it run?
So we've actually written about it in our note that we published early last week called the Yen-Yuan Tango. And in that we argue for a case for a higher dollar CNY. We think regulators, the PBOC wants the dollar CNY to drift higher. They're happy to let fixing go higher, but they're very cautious about that reinforcing itself, that market's taking that cue and running with it. So they don't want an unabated depreciation of the CNY, but they're very comfortable with letting dollar CNY higher. We've seen that last week with the fixing go slightly above 710. They tried it in late March, and you did have an unfettered depreciation of the CNY. They don't want that, but last week was a bit more of a controlled depreciation. You've seen that in the liquidity tightening offshore. You have the CNY-CNH spread be quite narrow, and that gives more comfort for the regulators to let dollar CNY go higher, especially in an environment where the yen is weaker as well. And when the yen's weaker, so the way we think about CNY is against the basket, the CFS basket. And regulators are conscious that it's as long as CNY is stable or depreciating only marginally against the dollar, it's starting to strengthen against its basket, has been for a while, which is not particularly conducive for growth. So they do want to let it higher, just don't want it to be an unabated depreciation.
But see, this is the question I have then, in terms of your own expectations, because you mentioned, the US dollar can get stronger or remain at these levels for the next 3 to 6 months, but on a relative basis, if we were to see, the cutting cycle start everywhere else but the US, and obviously there's the rationale behind the reason why the Fed might stand pat, and we see, the pressure that could potentially put on the long end of the curve, and we see all of these things, is there a risk in your mind that, and it's not a risk per se, but it's a risk that the US dollar gets even hotter than what people are expecting, that we're pushing to 110 above, and all of the implications that would have across the gamut as well?
We actually do expect the dollar to get stronger. Because
But how much stronger?
yes, so the point that you raised, where is there is this differential in terms of when the rate cuts are delivered. Say, Euro area and Bank of Canada go in June, maybe July. The Fed possibly goes in September, maybe even later, and the risk is that they probably go later. Then you also, not just the difference in the timing, but once you have rate cuts delivered by central banks, you will have markets extrapolating that and pricing way more rate cuts. So you'll have this period between possibly June to September when the Fed's expectations are around the 35, 40 basis points for the year of rate cuts delivered versus everywhere else where it's widened because you've had that one rate cut delivery. So you could have even further rate differentials moving even more support of the dollar. So another 2% higher is very, very foreseeable.
Chidu, I wish we had more time, but that's all the time that we have. And hopefully people take heed of your words as well. But thank you so much for making time. Really appreciate it. That was Chidu Narayanan from Wells Fargo Securities. Coming up, India's election process is continuing with the